how'd Boston go? Was it everything you thought it would be?
And more.
And more.
And more. Everything I thought it would be and more. No, it was good. It was a good first stop.
What did you like about it? Yeah, what did you like about it? Let's start there.
I liked how unscripted and jacked up it was. how all the mistakes we made.
Yeah.
Like the mistakes we made were awesome. So poor Brian, his clicker didn't work, and then all his slides weren't there. Who did that, by the way? How did that all get messed up?
So I left a few slides out. Technically, I did make a mistake. So I'm not always right.
See how I brought that all back? I caught you off guard and everything. See how I did that? Yeah.
You did.
Yeah. But it was covered well. Brian did a good job. I loved his presentation on telling stories and driving those to relevancy with not just the person, but the problems that they were struggling with. So I thought that was really good.
Yeah. And I felt like, kind of to your point, the vibe of there were some mistakes with slides and but it's like that's real. And I feel like the theme of the night was, how do you be real with someone when you prospect? How do you really care about them? How do you shift the conversation to one about them? How do you So I feel like it all kind of gelled together of like, I don't know, it felt a very community feel. I felt like we were almost like we weren't presenting. Like it was like a group presentation and dialogue that we were having with
what we could have called it was Flip the Script Unscripted.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
There was some unscripted
There's some serious unscripted, which actually is a good metaphor, analogy, or simile. I never know which they are. But because salespeople try too hard to be scripted, and therefore they can't respond or react when the client isn't on script. The client's just trying to get shit done.
Totally.
And they're on script, and they're like, what do I do? So,
I want to ask you, so how long has it been since on a sales call that you felt almost like you were role playing something, that you were acting to a degree?
Never.
Okay.
Never. And I can absolutely say that because I thought you were going to ask me when's the last time you were on a call that just went super fluid or smoothly, and I was going to say almost every single call.
There's something
that goes smoothly in the fact that it's not smooth, because the way I sell and the way gap selling teaches people to sell is you are completely committed to getting into their world.
Yeah.
So once you get into their world, you're not trying to drive them anywhere. It's almost like you're feeling around the dark and I got that, and I got that, and you're responding and reacting to what they're telling you and putting the pieces together. So you can't mess it up unless they don't like what they see when you put it together.
Totally. So something that I took away when I was talking to people afterwards is a lot of them were they were saying like, hey, I've followed the content for a while, but once they started double clicking, meaning I was like, oh well, what video have you watched? And when they started double clicking, they started to tell me about how they've deployed the concept. And then some things that they changed about it. And each time someone does this with me, they're kind of like, so I changed a little bit of it. And they're scared of me at first. And I'm like, that's good. And I'm like, tell me about the change. And they're like, well, I felt like at this part that it was a little not me because it was X, Y, and Z. And they're always timid with me, thinking that I'm going to get offended that they changed it. And I'm like, yo, this is a wireframe. This is an infrastructure. But like, I want you to change it. I want you to add in your personality. I want you to add in, like fill in the blanks here, because that's when it becomes authentic. And that's when it becomes like actually you, of like you give someone a wireframe just to give them some kind of direction, but it's like you want them to fill in the gaps. So
but when they change it, it's jacked up. Not all changes are good changes.
Totally. But it was like they would add on things, and sometimes when they come back to approve them, half of them I'll use. Like I'll be like, oh well, this is a little long. You should trim this, or you should add this in. But sometimes how I'm building content is based off of like people what they've told me. So people have wondered how I'm building so quickly, and I'm like. Even Matteo was asking me the other day, he said, how did the name how did you come with Flip the Script? And I'm like, I didn't. I'm like, I started the series and someone random yelled out in the audience, what's the name of this thing? I go, what do you mean by this thing? This isn't a thing. This is me talking about objection handling. And he said, this is a thing. And he said, I said, then what do we name it? And he goes, how about Flip the Script? I said, sold. Right, it's now Flip the Script. So even the name was crowdsourced, and I love that feel because it's like you want to bridge the gap between, this high level. I feel like like tower methodology and bridge it to like what actually works on the front lines and how is this practical or tactically applied. So anywho, I felt that in all of the people that I talked to, you know, that I felt like they were really deploying the concepts, or when they talk to me about you, they're like, I've read through the book and these are the 3 things that I've done along with the book. And even if they're not perfect, and even if they're just on the journey, and they're like, hey, I've read the book, so I know exactly how to do gap
yeah, sure they do. That's the worst.
But it's like they're on the train there.
Yeah.
And it's like same with me. I'm on the train there. You know, so that was my main takeaways. I felt like even the mistake, like you had to sit there at one point and just, you were sitting there clicking through my presentation for me.
Yeah.
I felt like it just brought an authentic vibe to it. So that's why I really...
But people dug it. Not many people left. I think that's critical. Not many people left, right? They made it all the way to the end.
Yeah.
And when it was over, they stayed for more food.
Yeah.
People were walking around, talking to us.
Yeah.
So, you know, people were sharing it after the fact, right?
Yeah.
Someone just jumped on a plane to come to the New York one.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think if we use people's reactions and responses as proof of the value, then we're winning there. Although that one guy that walked out during mine, the other guy got mad because I asked the marriage questions. But outside of that,
let's just expect one. There were two people that said, "Can we come to tomorrow? Would that make us groupies?" I'm like, I'm not sure about the second question, but yes.
Yes, you can come tomorrow. Yes, so we're gonna drive all the way down to New York after we just saw you in Boston.
And then they said, "Can we come on the bus?" I'm like, that's a hard no for me. Yeah, that's a Texas size no.
Amen. Amen. Yeah. Dinner was great too, though. Some of the conversations at dinner, the sponsored dinner.
Yes.
Like that was great. You know, some of the folks over there had some tremendous value. We got to really break down into some deep conversations on empathy and.
Yes. There was a dinner beforehand that we did too with John Barrows. Trish came out. Lori came out. You know, it's interesting.
Trish Bertuzzi.
Yes.
Right? Lori Richardson.
John Barrows needs no introduction, but. What was interesting about that dinner and to me is even when it wasn't being filmed and even when we were just there to have dinner, we were still talking about sales because we couldn't help it.
Yeah.
It was like, that's what we want to talk about off
all the time.
Totally.
Anybody who ever wants, like, if there were spouses on this thing, they would have just got up and left.
Totally.
Yeah. Like, do we have to do this? It's like that that commercial Emu American whatever the insurance is, right?
Totally.
And they're sitting around having a barbecue, and can we talk about something besides work? He goes, "You having the chicken?" And the Emu looks at him like, "What?"
Totally. I feel like we've all at one point churned a significant other because we're like, do I want to chase after him or do I want to
just talking about sales. Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting that even when it wasn't filmed, even when there was no like purpose of content, like we still were digging in. But yeah, it was a good night. Both nights were good nights. Hippo was there, Outreach was there, the Seismic team was there, out and wearing their shirts. And
in closing though, should we talk about the pitch off or just let that slide?
Let's just let it slide.
Woo, that was not pretty.
Keenan's got some heated opinions.
That was, oh my God. Okay, on that note, I will be nice. I'll make this all positive. It's all positive this way because, yeah.
See, you're just a couple perfume clicks away from getting Keenan into positive, guys.
Woo. Amen. All right, peace. I'm out.